Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time of day it is for you. I'm celebrating a snow day here in southwestern Pennsylvania. If you can hear, once in a while you'll hear the freezing rain hitting my windows or the roof. I live in an attic apartment. It's really nice. But yeah, I took one step out this morning and, well, we talked about it yesterday at work. If it was going to be a bad one, just stay home. And I made the decision to use a vacation day today. So I thought it'd be cool to go over some of the stuff that I have that mostly can be found still on places like AliExpress. I'll point out the ones that can't be found there in a minute here. But these are ones that I thought I could maybe share some useful tips and tricks and opinions about. And I sort of grouped them together here. And if you'll just be patient with me here, I will. What I'll do is try to get through these as quickly as I can. I don't see this being a short video, but what I'll start with here is sort of pause the screen, and I'm going to put numbers on each of these that will flash back and forth a couple times, and that'll reference the list in the description of the video. I'm going to go ahead and try to timestamp, but I'll number each one of these. So if you want to jump to each one, you should be able to go into the description and click on that timestamp. So let's pause right now, and we'll do that number thing I just talked about. Okay, now like I said, you can get into the description and click on the number and timestamp there to go to which specific one I'm talking about. At least that's how I'm going to try to set it up. I'm going to try to race through this so that it doesn't go on forever and ever. So I'm going to avoid things like talking about pricing, and I'm going to not take things apart, at least not for the most part. Just little tips and tricks and opinions. And we'll start with these. We're going to leave all these out here so we can see them, and we'll just sort of work our way down from the top to the bottom. And so these are free-floating sliders. And you know what? First off, here's what you can get on AliExpress right now. You should be able to find it. And here's what you probably can't. These are the things that you'd get on, you'd have to be a member on the Facebook groups and follow the maker and watch for drops and things like that, because they're only done in limited batches. This is a ModusWorks MWM, and it is not in production, but it is one of the very first sliders that have a modular plate on the inside and removable surface plates. These two are from FidgetThings, and they're called the Chonky Boi. Stainless steel aluminum. This is stainless steel with brass plates. So these three are free-floating sliders, and they're made by makers, like I said, on the Facebook group, so that you'd have to follow them. They're not readily available, especially this one. That was I paid a lot for that, just because it is one of the earliest ones that has modularity, and it is nice. It's a sweet little thing. I'll show it to you in a minute. But so that's those. These are the carbon fiber ones. You know what? I'm going to stick with stuff that you cannot find on AliExpress first. So these all come from makers on Facebook. ModusWorks, and these come from FidgetThings. Moving over here, we have the CompoForm Triquetra. I don't know if these are available right now, but these come out in batches. This is the first one. We'll talk more about it later, but that comes from a maker, CompoForm. I'm working our way over here to things that you can only get on Facebook. Here is a HexDoDec spinner slash Haptic slash ring spinner, and that is made by the same fellow that makes these FidgetThings in copper. This is the Apache by, I'll find out what it is and tell you then here, Axiom, I believe. Yeah, Axiom makes this as well. But that's the Apache, I believe, and it has a haptic. It's copper. So these two come from makers. And I guess that's it. The rest of these can all be found on AliExpress. So I'll leave it at that. I'm going to try to avoid talking about pricing. And we'll just pause there whilst I gather my thoughts for the next part. Okay, starting off with the free-floating sliders, this is the ModusWorks MWM. It's stainless steel with brass plates. I actually filed the corners down just a little bit. It was getting in the way, I thought. This being an early one, it does have a modular plate on the inside. You can put the magnets in different arrangements. It comes with different size magnets. Right now I have it set up as a 3-click slider. And to be honest with you, it's the stickiest, finickiest slider that I have, free-floating slider that I have, but I absolutely love it because it is practically the original. You know, before this I'd say the original slider with removable faceplates and modularity was not this. It would be the what is it? Shoot. It's not YEDC, darn it. Anyhow, I'll think of it and I'll put it up in a little thing up here on the screen. But this would be the most commonly known, the first slider that was made with modularity. So it's a little sticky, but if you get used to finessing it around, it is nice and quiet. So oftentimes when I go for a walk with my dad on the weekends, I don't want to bug people around us and stuff, so I'll put this in my little fifth pocket, and that's really nice. And I love the texture of it too. So that's that one. This can demonstrate nicely the idea of weak magnets and strong magnets on a light slider as opposed to a heavy slider. So this is aluminum, and it has Teflon plates on it currently. You can change the plates on this if you want. I also have 3D printed plates, which are not as smooth as this, but you know, they suffice almost as nice, but not nearly as butter smooth as these. And then there's the brass, and that has a feel all of its own, a little bit like the ModusWorks over here. And yeah, this one, I don't know, you know, you can exchange the magnets, that's the thing. This one I wanted to point out has the stronger magnets in it because it's stainless steel, and it needs that extra grip. Otherwise it's just too floppy when it's in these extended positions. But the aluminum one, I especially like it because it is so light, and you put this in your pocket, you don't even know it's there, and it can be pretty quiet too. Actually, I think they're both fairly quiet, or as loud as you want them to be. So talking about that, let's talk about my opinion of plastic on haptics. This is the only one I have that has Teflon or synthetic plate, and I don't think I like it. I like it for the fact that I got to try that, and it does suit this one particularly well because this really is like I can take this and not worry about dropping it. It's so light, I don't notice it's there. It's so light that when it falls, it doesn't damage. But I don't like the idea of when you pay a lot of money. Now, this wasn't a lot of money, so that kind of makes it okay. But like I've seen the new, it's like the ACEDC pig slider, maybe, pig nose slider, weird things that are really expensive. You know, we're talking 150 up, and they have plastic plates on the inside, or Teflon. But I'm thinking when you start to pay that kind of money, and the other thing that's a pet peeve with me is to see anything being designed today with anything but Torx or Allen, at the very least, Allen head screws. These are Torx. Some stuff that's come out recently has Phillips head, and we'll talk about that in particular. This puppy here, practically a non-standard Phillips head, which you wouldn't even know existed. So I don't like Phillips head screws. When you see that on a slider, it's typically from China, and I look at it as a red flag. I don't like Phillips head. It's an indication of low quality, I think. So that covers those. And now we'll just gather our thoughts for the next part. All right, for the carbon fiber sliders, we have 3 to look at very quickly. I would say avoid this kind of slider or any kind of slider, a ball slider. Specifically, these have a single row of magnets down the middle. And I'd like you to try to avoid anything that doesn't have a nice square edge across the bottom and top. This isn't quite square, but it's a heck of a lot better than this chevron V shape. And this one is particularly good with a nice square bottomed edge, and I'll show you why in a second. But this one is the one to avoid. It sounds like I got a delivery from Amazon. It's probably sitting at work right now. Poor guy had to deliver it in this terrible weather we're having. Where was I? This is the worst of the carbon fiber sliders, although it is very pretty if you like the design. Other than that, it's just loosey-goosey. And I've done reviews on most of these. You can find them. I'm probably not going to link to them, but you can look them up by name once you figure out what you're interested in. So I avoid that one. This one would be next in line. A little less money maybe. It's a little less loosey-goosey. Whoops. And you can see the insides there. There's 2 slugs. And this one, this is what makes it a little bit better to have a square edge down at the bottom, and that would be the ability to spin it when you get one from the top. As I've said probably over and over again on my videos with these free-floating sliders that have a single row of magnets on the inside, you can either take it all the way to the top and bring it back down, or bring it all the way but 2 to the top. That would be there. So there's still 2 magnets, and they're still engaged, but if you're careful, you can use this one as a pivot, and that's where this square edge comes in handy, and you can bring it around, and then the last move is to pop it home. And once you get used to that, it's a breeze. So that's what's nice about that one, and that's what's a pain about this one. We'll take the slugs out of this one, and you'll see. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to the top, and you can spin it around. But like I said, I like to go 2 from the top. So 1, 2, 3. There's still 2 engaged here, and I want to rotate it around that middle one. But there's not a good corner to grab a hold of here. And when you try to grab it here, you're likely to push the whole top surface off. So in that aspect, it doesn't work well. It doesn't work well unless you get careful. You can get 1, 2, 3. If you're careful and grab it here and finesse it around, but that's this one in particular. So of the 3, I would avoid this one maybe, unless you really like this shape. It is nice and chunky. This one would be better. And this one is the newest of the group, and it would be the best. They've made improvements. I'll bet it's made by the same people. The slugs are almost identical, except they're a little bit longer. And this time the machined grooves are much more accurate. There's not much slop in this at all. And it's got a good strong magnets. Really good strong magnets. And you could probably, if you want to, you can be quiet with it. Let's knock these out of here. Holy cow, 2 deliveries today. Terrible weather for that. Anyhow, here is how this one works. And since it has nice corners and very strong magnets, that makes this a lot easier. So this is the one you want to get, I think, as far as carbon fiber sliders go. And we'll move on to the next one here. Okay, now we're on to these 2, and this one's titanium, and it's a pill holder. I liked it just because it could do this. But there's sort of a lesson to be learned here about titanium, and most of us who've been in on this collecting thing are pretty aware of it. Titanium against titanium isn't the best surface for friction. It wants to bind up a little bit. So a lot of people I've seen with this put tape. They'll put that Teflon tape along these tracks. Now, I absolutely hate to use tape on anything. There's only one thing in my collection that has tape in it, and it's because it's a necessity in order to make it work properly. And I'm trying to maybe try that, getting rid of that too. If you need it, that's fine. There are valid reasons for tape. Sometimes it's the only way to make a slider work if you don't have the means of fixing a magnet, getting a magnet to be flush. The other thing that was pointed out by a fellow YouTuber was if you have tinnitus, if your ears ring, and these clicks can be really loud. You don't realize that, but really high decibels. He measured it. He has a meter. And a really loud pop like that is enough to send your ears ringing. I don't have tinnitus. My friend had it, so I can sympathize. And when he brought that up, I thought, you know what? There's a valid reason for tape. Aside from, like I said, if it's the only way to fix something to make it work, it just doesn't want to operate otherwise. But I hate to see tape, and it looks like it's going to get sticky on the edges and attract fuzz and fall apart, and it just seems like a mess. So I'll stop about that rant. That's the lesson to be learned with that. This other one, the other point about this one, tips and tricks, I guess, there's a magnet button on here, but it's not very satisfying. It's a real shame that I haven't tried popping this apart. It doesn't appear to have any fasteners. It's probably glued, and I'm not going to mess with it. But it's two opposing magnets. They have a diagram I've seen from some people that sell this, and I tested it with magnets. It is magnetic. I'd have much rather have had one of those little stainless steel bubble buttons that would make this popped nicely, like these A and B buttons on this slider. But the other thing is, it's fairly loud, because like I said, it was a pillbox. I have it filled with a layer of foam here. So that's the tip and trick, it is to go to your local Walmart. I did bugger it up a little bit here, but the idea was to dull the sound just a little bit. So I think what I did was I took like 2 layers and made it just fit down in here, just like a glove. If you have patience and an X-Acto knife, you can do this. And it's just, you can buy this foam. I think it's a 1/16 of an inch thick, and then just you know, glue it together or tape it together. And I made it so it's stepped, so it fits right down in there and fills it all up nicely. And I think that deadens the sound a little bit, but we won't get into much more detail on that one. The CompoForm Triquetra. This, if he makes them again, this is it's brass, but it's got a forced patina on it, and that's the only way they came at the time. I believe there was another metal, but it was copper plated brass with a forced patina. So I don't like the forced patina. That's what I discovered. I think it makes this a little bit gummy. I think it would be a lot smoother if it didn't have that on it at all. And I was really envious of another fellow in the groups. When these came out, he made a special request to have one with no forced patina on it at all. So it was raw brass. And it just looks nice, and it just operates, it looks like it operates really smooth. But I'm happy with this. I really, really wanted it. It's one of my first nice pieces, you know, and I spent the money on it, and I've been really happy with it. Like I said, it's a little sticky, but that's the way it is. So we'll move on to these next. Okay, now we're back to talk about these. If you listen, you can hear the freezing rain hitting my windows and my ceiling. It's really nice. It's about 9, about 9:45 on a Thursday morning on a snow day. So this is the GAO Studio Square, and it has a configuration that you can change. Small magnets, large magnets. Right now I have it set up as 3, 3, and 3. The other recommendation and tip and trick would be to set it up as a plus. In other words, take the magnets out of the corners, and that turns it into something that you can move out to this edge, actually out to here, and then it will do a nice rotation with your thumb. Doesn't want to do that so much with all the magnets installed. But with all the magnets, and these are the large magnets, 3, 3, 3, it's a nice, it operates as you would expect it to. But it's also, I found a few little, these would be my little tricks. Not my tricks. This one I saw watching the video, at least on one of the sellers. We have this. The other thing would be this. I did not see them do this, but that's pretty pleasing. And like I said, I haven't really messed with the small magnets, but that's pretty much the story on this one. This is called the Zero One the Zero One EDC by Zero One EDC. And there's some issues going on with this right now. It seems like it's being taken care of. I'm not going to get into details, but I am keeping an eye on it. If it isn't handled that well, we'll talk about that later. But right now it seems like it's in the process of being taken care of. So that's the story on that one. The issue is magnets, mostly magnets coming out. My issue is the screws. I've damaged all the screws trying to get them out. I want replacements. Other than that, I really like this one, and my main tip and trick for this one is, as people before me, I learned this from other people, is there used to be a screw in the middle here and in the middle here, and what it did was capture these 3 pieces together so it wouldn't come apart. It's better to have that taken out. Take that screw out. And to do that, if you want better details, watch my video review of this for how to do that. But other than that, that keeps it from getting jammed up, and it operates a lot smoother. So I like that. That's my tip for that one. The next one here is this one just doesn't get enough love, I don't think, but it's hard to hold. You have to get yourself trained to hold it. And the tricky part is to keep your middle finger down. This way, I hold it like this when I'm walking around, and I operate it like that. And the reason it's hard to get your middle finger to stay down like that, you kind of want to always have a grip on it. You don't want to have it at any point in time where it's like loose and might fall out of your hand. But until you train your middle finger to do that, it wants to like stay up in the air. And, you know, that doesn't look good to your buddies, your neighbors and whatnot. So that takes some getting used to. But other than that, it's really nice. And I'd call it a tracked slider. It's a sandwich design. There's like 3 layers. After this little section right here, we're going to pause it. Actually, I'll just pause it when I'm done talking about it. We're going to move on to this one and before we take a slight break. But I'm going to pause it right now and show you some photos I've taken of this disassembled with all the nice pieces, and just so you get an idea of how intricate it is. It is a tricky thing to take apart and put back together again, but it's also, that's something I really enjoy with these things. So we'll pause right now and take a peek at that. So that's how that works, and the last part of this little grouping will be the, this is made by Metal Toys DZ. This is stainless steel. It's a deep fried dough stick. It is the Top D slider. Very nice, very happy with this one. My tips on this would be on how to use it. I've been carrying it around, and I think I've developed my best use of it here, is trying to demonstrate it to you here now, is to sort of push forward. You want to make sure you go forward all the way, because if you don't get quite all the way, it'll start to rotate on you, but then it doesn't want to. And I would be afraid to force that, because if you force that, something's going to pop and maybe do some damage. So it's critical that this is pushed up all the way before you start moving it. And if you encounter any resistance when you're pushing it this way, you should stop and make sure it's pushed up the whole way. So my original review on this, I talked about it a little bit. I think my suggestion was to do these moves in kind of an abrupt manner. So all the way forward, and then bring this down with your thumb, almost like you're trying to chop off this finger. Bring it down, chop. And the next move, I believe in my video, was to say, keep your thumb on it, move these fingers out of the way, and then just continue that motion until it's closed all the way. And then you can reset it. That works, but another way that seems to be maybe the more preferred way is to just slightly modify that, and that's to go up, then down, and then move these fingers out of the way entirely, and almost use those fingers to slam it home, rather than your thumb. Because when you use your thumb, you sort of get into a position right here where it's a little bit shaky. You might lose it, grip, drop, and everything. But if you do this, and then swing your hand out, you got a good grip on it. Whatever you're comfortable with. But because of its design, you know, I love it does this, but because of its design, it is a little tricky to do. So that's it. The other tip for this would be, it comes with a plastic protective cover, adhesive backed on this bottom piece. You could barely tell it's there. I removed mine right away. I don't think that's necessary. Again, it's one of those things, I don't like using Teflon tape, and I don't think that was necessary. I don't think it should be there. Keep it on if you like. Try it out for a while. Mine's working just fine. I think it has actually a little bit more character now, because it is abrading a little bit. And you can feel the texture just a little bit, and I'm fine with that. I'd rather have that natural feeling than have to deal with sticky tape, or, you know, it's falling apart in a couple of years, or full of fuzz and all that garbage. So that's it for those. Oh, but that one is upside down. Could not have that. We got to straighten all this out now. All right. All right. Now I feel better. Okay. All right. Now we're going to talk about these two briefly. These are both GAO Studio originals. They're both stainless. That one's black. That one's regular color. This was called the SP-A slider, and it has a little lanyard attachment here at the top. So that's kind of a little bit of a strange arrangement. So when we take the top off, you'll see there's not a whole row of magnets that go all the way to the top, but it doesn't really affect things in any way. But it operates nice as a ball slider. What I want to start to point out here is that these ball sliders, just like these sliders that use the slugs, you can take these balls out. I actually prefer to take the balls out if I'm going to go, I'll put them over here. If I'm going to go out of doors, I would carry this without the balls, because for one, it's more fun to use. You can do things like this. And the other thing is you're not going to lose the balls now. So yeah, that's what it is. That's what I like about that one. This one also has the, unfortunately you can't take these little plastic buttons out, but there's the little clicky button underneath. Now this one is the owl, and if you have it pointed in this direction, you get a little bit of resistance from these magnets, and it's fun to, once you get used to it. A lot of people don't like this because it's a little bit, maybe you'd say it's a little bit sloppy, loose feeling. That's not your kind of thing. But once you get used to it, it's all right. You get used to it, and I like it. And it does have kind of a nice little sound to it, too. So we'll just pop it apart quick, since this one's easy. You can see how it operates. If I push it on this side, it gets up there, and you can sort of swing it around. And this would be what I do when I walk around with it. The other thing is to do, and this is just takes a little bit of practice. This side it'll spin freely, but it's kind of hard to do that with one hand. But once you get used to it, you'll find you can do it more often than not. So this one's a little bit unusual. It's I call it, again, I'd say it's a delicate design. Not your typical slider. There's not a strong, the magnets aren't strong, there's not a loud click, there's not a, it's a low impact haptic. So that's those two. Let's just go ahead and move on to these three, and these are just examples of pivot sliders. And it so happens that each one of these can either be, this is kind of a track slider, this is a weird one, but these have balls and tracks, this has balls and tracks. This one, it was a mystery when I bought it, but it's wood, and it's very nice. You can get this also with a skull and crossbones on it, but it's, see, 2 clicks in one direction, 2 clicks in the other direction, but then it also does this. Not that it necessarily was designed to do that, because it's not necessarily easy to do that, but once you master it, it's kind of fun. And the weird thing about how that works, because doesn't it look like there's 2 tracks that run up and down the length of this? Maybe there was going to be a couple slugs in here that keep it straight. That's what I certainly thought it was, but it's not the case at all. Very unusual design. Probably doing something it was not intended to do, but that's what's interesting and unique about that. The other one, this is another pivot slider. This is called the Rice Ball Rocker, I believe. And the pivot point is up here. It's magnetic. Then there's a row of magnets here. Here, we'll pop it apart in a second, just briefly. And my tip with this one would be to know how many balls to put in to each track so that you have this set up optimally. So here's the trick. You want to have 3 balls on the bottom track and 2 balls on the top track. I originally not originally, but I just told someone who else did a review on this, hey, you'd be a lot better off if you put 3 here and 3 here. Well, that's not the case. After some thinking about it and trying it in different ways, this is the most optimal way. 3 here and 2 here. That way it goes out as far as it can without being overextended, without interference. And the other thing is, you'll notice it looks like it's missing a magnet here in the middle. Now, that could be part of the design process. Maybe they rushed this in. I get the idea, the feeling that a lot of this stuff's rushed into production, and then they just decided as a last-minute thing that wasn't necessary. So it doesn't, strangely enough, that doesn't bother me very much. And to me, it's more important to have these magnets here and here at the full end of each swing, if you think about it, to indicate that that's sort of where it stops. It might have been just too much to have a magnet in the middle, and it works just fine without it. So, like I said, we'll put this back together, and you can see you can hold it in your hand like this, and you'll get, if you're slow, it's not very, very audible, but 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks. And if you spin it around, I tend to get a little bit more of a haptic response doing it this way. But that's one thing you can do with it. Now on the videos for this, they show another trick where you take an extra magnet, which I didn't get an extra magnet with mine, but you can do it without the extra magnet. We'll go ahead and do that here. Get rid of these balls. And now, it acts as sort of a free-floating slider. But forget doing anything you were doing before. It just doesn't work. I mean, you can. Apparently you can, but it will pop off if you're not careful. It's just not the same as having the balls in there to glide it. You have that nice precision and direction. But what they were showing on the videos was to take the extra magnet, plop it here, and then plop this on top of it, and then it gets a lot looser, and then you can do things like this. But you don't need that extra magnet. If this is something you want to do, you just have to practice it until you get good at it. But that's the story on that one. And I call it a pivot slider because it has that pivot point. This had a pivot point in the middle. This is probably the best pivot point slider that I have, one of my favorites. And I did a video on this too. Most of these you can search by their name, my name, and then its name. I will have done a review explaining how it works, taking it apart completely. This is what I like about this one. It's the ACEDC stamp. It's a pivot slider. You can take the pin out if you want, but I carry it around like this. It comes with balls, but I take the balls out. I don't want them in. Then it's restricted to movement. It only goes forward. It doesn't go forward. It's the same number of clicks, I believe, but it's restricted in movement. So now I walk around at work. I'll often just do this hand cup pop kind of a thing. But the fact that it pivots, and once you learn how to do this, and you can do it, the edges of the stamp is what really facilitates this, makes it easy to do with one finger, your thumb, actually. And then you have to just figure out how to hold it so that you can do that. But that's what makes this one of my favorites. And you can get different faceplates for this. So this one's zirconium. It's the only piece of zirconium I have. I wouldn't have bought it, except it was on the buy-sell trade, and it cost exactly the same as the stainless steel one would have cost from China, and it would have taken a lot longer to come from China. And I'm glad. Zirconium, to me, has a sort of, if you don't have any, I don't know if it's all the same. It can be dark like this. It can be black. Or it can be shiny and polished and silvery. But to me, especially in this format, which I think is sort of a bead-blasted finish and a grayish finish, and it has a ceramic feel, is the best way to put it. Like ceramic, these G10 spinners that I have, I like G10 especially because it's a synthetic material, not just plastic, but it's actually got glass fibers in there. And it has that ceramic feel to me as well. I don't know why zirconium has that going on too, but it does. It makes for a good grip, and the little scalloped edges make it nice to rotate with one hand. But this is an absolute favorite. There's a little lanyard attachment point here that I never use. But that's the story on those. Those are some pivot sliders for you. Next thing we'll do, you know what, we'll cover this one quick, and then we'll take a little break, and then we'll cover this last row here. So this is the Metronome, as it was advertised on AliExpress, the Nova Metronome, possibly. And my tip for this one is, it comes with balls on the inside. It comes with, I believe, 5 or 6. And if you put them all in there, it won't slide back and forth at all. They get in the way. And if you put just not enough in there, then they get in the way too. I've decided after trial and error that the best way to carry this around is with just 2 balls in it. And I'll show you why in a second here. It's interesting how this was designed. Whether the balls are in there or not, you can hear them roll around, which means they're not a bearing surface. At no point in time, not even in the middle, are those balls taking any stress from the attractiveness of the magnets here. It's just the way this was designed. So it will slide forward if you're careful. It's it's a little bit loosey-goosey. So, but that's what I'm saying. My tip and trick for this one is to carry it with 2 balls in it rather than 3, rather than 4, rather than 5, or I think it's 5 was the limit. But 2 balls seems just enough to keep it in line, to keep it from wanting to pop apart. If you put 3 in there, you get up to this point and the whole thing wants to pop apart on you because it's trying to ride up that ramp. It's too many. And if you have too many balls, then you only get like 1 click out of it, then it's hardly worthwhile. So that's my tip and trick for that one. And next thing we'll do is talk about these. This one, this one, this one, this one, and this one after this short break. Okay, this is the Lautie X-Lock from Spy Wars series, stainless steel. And my tip would be simply on how to use this one. A lot of people have trouble figuring out how to get a grip on it. It clicks 1 click in each direction. And the best way I can simply tell you is to hold this like you would a syringe and push it with your thumb and sort of keep it in that configuration, back and forth, back and forth. Simple as that. That's my trick for that one. Now the MAG.U, MAG.U from GAO Studios again is it hovers and it spins. And this flat spot helps sort of give you a place to grip it, but does not come with this lanyard or this lanyard bead. And without that, it's almost impossible to get a grip on this thing. So on my video I did about this, I show you how to go about putting this lanyard in here, because there's not enough room in here to tie a knot off. It's got to be melted. This is gutted paracord. And the 2 ends come up in here, and it's melted and pressed flat and trimmed away, and it just fits in there. It's just enough to keep it from pulling out. And like I said, it's really necessary, I think. That's my tip and trick for this one, is you need a paracord and you need a good grippy bead in order to get some to get a good grip on it here. But the idea is you get it going, and I've never practiced using it all that much, so I'm not that great at it, but that's essentially what you're going to do there. That's my tip. You need the lanyard and you need the bead. This one you can get in like 3 different materials. This is a great little spinner / haptic. Really nice little design. Let's get it on 1 finger here. Get a good spin going. So very well balanced. This is brass. I think you can get stainless, zirc. What else did I see? Stainless, zirc, copper maybe. Prices go up from brass. But it has this 2-layer function, and this is my tip and trick, is how to hold it. It's so small that it fits in your finger like this, and if you hold it just right, you can do that, and then use your thumb on the corner to push it as far forward as you can. It's easy to get it almost the whole way, and then come back and finish it. So, whoops, a little too much force there. And again, I'm not particularly well practiced with this, but this is what I've come up with is the best way to do it. It fits nice in your fingers like that, and wood has ever worked nice as a haptic. If you're really good, you can spin it the whole way around. I would say, if you're really good, but you get the idea. It also kind of acts like a clicker, but again, very nice. It'd be nice if you had these in the different materials. You could mix and match the tops and bottoms if you wanted to. So that's that tip and trick. We're just going to go ahead and shoot through these and finish it off. This, the closest thing I could find a name on this was the 9-star. That's it, 9-star. I found it on AliExpress. This was originally blue. I sandblasted it. Other people say bead blast. It's not beads. It was glass. It was ground up glass that I used as my abrasive material. You can get different abrasives. So this was glass blasted, and that took the anodized blue finish off of it. If you take this apart, you'd see that. When you go to my video about this, where I take it apart, you'll see the insides are still blue parts of it. But the tip and trick on this one is that it works great if you set it up the way it's shown here. And I think I have a few friends in the groups that are in agreement with me on that. So when it comes in the mail, it's set up in such a way that when you turn this, these ends pop in and out randomly, and it doesn't turn smoothly at all. It's like click, 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 and they're all popping in and out randomly. And the trick is to set this up so there's an inner ring of magnets, and then there's these outer ring of magnets. And what you want to do is set them up so that they oppose each other. That way, when it's in this configuration, they're sort of in between each other, and they stay together. It keeps this thing together and doesn't want to roll apart. It also doesn't want to turn. But just a slight twist, and it pops out almost like a little ninja tool there, and then you can feel the magnets. You can see when it stops how the magnets react. If you get good at it, you can sort of spin it with your fingers. You just have to make sure. See you don't want to touch it here because that part's rotating, and you'll slow it down. So it gets a little tricky to hold in your fingers. And that's why I sandblasted it, because when it was blue anodized, it was so slippery that it was so hard for me to do anything like that. And it just made much more sense to do that. So that's another tip. You want all the magnets to be opposing each other, which means taking it apart. And then you also would, it'd be nice if you could rough up these two surfaces. And if you don't have a sandblaster and access to that sort of thing, you could always go after this with some rough grit sandpaper. Just go slowly and don't go aggressively. You could come up with something really nice probably. And then the edges would still be whatever it was colored anodized, because these come in blue, silver, black, and tan, I think. That's the story on that one. Now this one, this is the HexDoDec spinner from FidgetThings in copper with an aluminum plug. Great spinner, very versatile. I got one of the earlier ones, so these edges where they meet are very sharp, right? And the new ones, they all have rounded edges. But this is one of the earlier ones, and that's an issue slightly for me because it does get sharp. So it's you can take this plug out, but you can also keep it the way it is, and you'll see that this rotates. It's not as easy to do with the plug in as it is in a second. I'll show you taking the plug out. And another thought on this, my tip and trick would be avoid copper on copper, just like you might avoid titanium on titanium, like this, because copper, soft metals, now brass doesn't seem to want to do that, but copper and titanium particularly want to bind up with each other. And the titanium, I think, is more of a metal issue, and this is a metal issue in a sense that I think it's such a soft material, and then I think the patina that forms, it's going to form no matter what, and I think the patina is kind of what makes it a little sticky. Just like I said, this has a forced patina on it, and I wish it didn't, because I think that deadens it just a little bit. But let's go ahead and take the button out. I sandblasted this myself, so they're a little bit different than they would have looked when they were bought brand new. So now, if you put it on your finger, not only is it a great finger ring spinner, but it becomes easier to hold and a lot easier to use as a haptic. Nice and clicky. Much easier with it without the button in. So that's my tip and trick on that one. Here's a similar one. This is the Axiom Apache, I believe, and it's a ring spinner, and it's also a haptic. There's a magnet here and here. It's two halves, and the buttons are really nice. I do like this. They're held together by a magnet. So that's a nice, good, strong force there. I don't have anything else like that in my collection, so that's interesting. As a ring spinner, works great. As a fidget spinner with the button in, it works great. As a haptic, not so great. And it's gummy, it's sticky. You could see how tarnished yeah, the patina on it, and that's probably what's making it a little sticky. So I don't recommend. Ideally, this one and this one, if I could buy them again, if I had lots of money, I'd get them both in stainless. And I try to lean towards getting stuff in stainless. That's a huge tip. Stainless is great. Titanium's great for weight and strength. It's good if you drop it. It's not going to bang up, get nicked up so badly. But I like stainless. Aluminum's very soft. Copper's soft. Copper, brass is very soft. But titanium, stainless is the way to go, I think. If you want economy and strength and it's going to be something you're going to drop anyhow. So that's my opinion on that. And lastly, this is another one from GAO Studio. I think they called it the Riffle or the Rifling. This is stainless steel. It's unusual. My tip for this one is you almost have to put something similar to this on it, a lanyard bead with a little bit of paracord, because that's how you grip it. Otherwise, it's amazingly hard to grip a hold of this thing and do anything meaningful with it, because it's so hard, it's just so small and so unusual. But in this configuration, and you'd have to set it up yourself, that keeps it right in your finger where you want it to be. And it goes up. If you're good, you can get... I got cut off there. I actually ran out of space on my phone. I had to make some space. What I was saying about how to hold this, and that would be my tip and trick on this one, is to add the lanyard, paracord bead, and paracord, and set it up so you can grip it a little bit better. And then you can do these sort of standard tricks if you can get it to pop back. It's supposed to imitate, I believe, a semi-automatic handgun, which I think is just kind of silly, but it's a trend over there, I think, because they don't have handguns to play with. At least this one doesn't look so much like one that I think it would get you shot. Some of the newer ones look a little too realistic. I think probably on the subway could get you shot, but I don't really care. I'm not interested in those. This one, overall, I wasn't too happy with it. It came with balls in it that were magnetic, and they were flaking, and I had to clean that out, and I ended up putting cylindrical magnets in their place. And in order to make those work, this is the only piece in my collection that has Teflon tape in it. And I don't know if we'll be able to catch it in there or not, but it's in that little track on the inside. That's just so that the cylindrical magnets can glide across a little bit better. Like I said, I don't like to use that tape anywhere if I don't have to. And I'm going to take this apart again and try putting in the non-magnetized steel balls, and then we'll see how it works with or without the tape. I prefer not to have that in there, but that's the story on this one. And well, I was just about to finish up this video, and I was putting the pieces together, editing them, and I realized that I forgot to talk about this one. This is a modification that I did, but it's well worth mentioning. I already did a video on it showing you how to do everything you need to do, and I highly recommend it. This is the, well, I don't want to focus, Axiom EDC. No, Axiom EDC might be the company, but it's Axiom, and this is called the PoGo. And initially, it's designed as a knuckle bone, so for this sort of thing. I've never been good at that. I have another one, but I don't use it very much. And that's what this was intended to be. I modified it so that it's more of a haptic. So right now, the ends are attracting each other. And if I take this apart, you take these screws out, there's 3 on each side. If I flip these ends around, then they will oppose each other, and they'll be in this position, and then they'll be springy. So it'll be springy towards the middle, and they'll want to expand outward. But to do that, you have to glue the magnets in, and you have to glue them in a particular way. When you buy this, it wasn't intended to be used like that. When you buy this, there's 2 magnets on this side, 2 magnets on this side, and they sit in little cups, and they're loose. And so the original intent was that they were either to oppose each other, in which case they don't need to be glued in, or you take them out entirely, and then with no magnets in there, then these sides just sort of flop around kind of loosely. But in order to get them to attract, you need to glue them in. And I would recommend you watch my video on that. He only did 1 batch of these, I think, he did them in stainless, copper, maybe titanium, I think zirconium, that might be it. I think he only did 1 run. But this was only like $80, I think. And if you do my modification, well, you can use it pretty much like it was intended. Like I said, you flip these sides around, and they then want to oppose each other and become springy. And if you're a person that likes to use this as a finger bone thing, knuckle bone, then it's a little easier to use when it's in the extended mode as opposed to the short mode. But I don't use it like that. I use it like this, and I either grip it by these 2 grippy ends, textured ends, do something like that, or just in my fingers, it pops right back together. That's one of the most satisfying things I've come up with. And yeah, I'd look for one of these on the buy sell trade if you can, and then look up my modification and consider trying that out. But that's it. That's the end of the video. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to try and answer in the comments. And that's it. See ya. Bye-bye.